Hello and welcome to the Cacophony. My name is the Senate, and I will be your host for today's episode of our podcast. Today's topic is General James Ironwood. Who else but Atlas's tallest and also, no bias here, most attractive defender. Now, joining me today are my guests, Bell,
Hi.
Jared,
Yo, what's up?
XVG Dylan.
I have something in my eye.
As you can see, they are all primed and ready and totally not going to just cause mayhem. Boy. Well, every great journey starts with some questions. So, General Ironwood questions. What were your initial impressions of this character when he was introduced to us all the way back in Volume 2? I want to hear from Jared first.
All right. One of my initial impressions of Ironwood back in Volume 2 was just he seemed impressionable. He seemed nice. When I saw him talking with Torchwick, I originally thought that he was going to be a villain or whatever, because I just kind of got that sort of vibe from him. I don't know. I just felt like he was going to be a villain, or he already was. But then I turned out to be wrong. But then Volume 7 came around, and then I was right again. So, but other than that, he was very. I liked him the first time. I liked him when he was first introduced. He's cool, but I mean pre-Volume 7 cool, not now cool.
Oh, we'll get to Volume 7. Just you wait. Bell, how about you?
Hmm. I thought he was just kind of the Atlas flavor of Ozpin. He's Ozpin. He's a little different. He's Atlas, so he's boring, bland, and military. And yeah, that's about as complex as I saw him originally.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd have to say that as for my own thoughts, I kind of assumed that he would be like, yes, Ozpin's equivalent ranker versus what he sort of became. As to me, it seemed like he saw him more as Ozpin's friend and like subordinate rather than like as another teacher or administrator. But let's not waste time with my thoughts too much. Let's hear from Dylan.
I never trusted him. Just he. You look at the character. I never trusted any of the adults really. I think I've been pretty vindicated in there.
Ozpin
Just-
is the greatest villain since uh
Vengeance.
no, we're not going into Power Rangers right now. God help us all. If you let
You're the one
Dylan
who
get
continued.
started,
No,
good
you're the one.
point.
I mean, I could talk about robots. Yeah,
He's more machine now than
yeah. Ironwood he's just been someone who I never fully trusted. He was always someone about to go on a mental break, or he didn't trust the right people. I always thought he would be controlled by something, and in the end, I think I was justified in my thinking that something would, and it was fear. Though my initial theories of him possibly being hacked were down.
See, we're still waiting for Penny to get hacked at some point, I think. But you know,
I don't know. At this point, she's a maiden.
yeah,
How
but
hacked
imagine a
can?
hacked maiden.
All right.
Well, I think that this is now a good time to think a little bit towards the future, or in other cases, the middle, depending on where you jumped in with this show. In the lead up to Volume 7, we had bits and pieces of his action appearances. In Volume 4, we had him claim 2 seats on the council, grow half of his. Did he grow half of his beard during that time, or most of it?
Yeah,
It was a stubble.
He
Yeah.
had the
So he didn't have the full Iron Daddy beard yet.
Mm.
he had the lockdown week 2 beard.
Please don't date this podcast too much, Dylan.
Mm.
Just don't say the word. We will get demonetized. Do
We'll
we make
get
money off these?
demonetized. What?
I'm pretty
I'm
sure
not
you
making
guys.
money off of this.
I am pretty
But,
sure none of us are making money off of this.
Oh, I better
Well, we're
uncash
making
that
money off of
paycheck.
this. But in the lead up to Volume 7, we had bits and pieces of his action and appearances. Did this shape or change a lot of your ideas of what he was going to be like in Volume 7 with things like the embargo or pulling Winter and other troops out of Mistral? Things that were more off screen than in your face.
I didn't. There was nothing really that got me thinking about Ironwoods in Volume 7 before all that. But like, yeah, I could see how he was like really starting to sort of buckle down on things with the embargo and military and everything. Really, the only things from Ironwood in Volume 4 that I really care about is his nice ass suit that's very underrated, and that whole dining room scene where he just shoots a boar made out of Weiss's angst and everything.
Now that was the scene. Do any of you, Dylan? Do you have any other thoughts about this?
Well, I'm not one who really cares about the inner working of the higher politics of Atlas in Volume 4, at least. So I wasn't really too concerned about, oh, I have 2 seats. Nah, his flex jocks.
I am the council.
You
You
know,
know I had to go there.
initially I thought the council would be a lot bigger than just like 4 or 5 people. Like what it ended out to be. I was thinking, whoa, 60 people, all districts of Atlas, and he's got 2. Damn, he must have a lot of friends as well. But no, it's like 5 people, and it's like I have, two fifths of the vote.
I mean, that's enough to stall a filibuster, I suppose.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how Atlas's electoral system exactly works for its legislature.
I mean,
Personally,
It's
I
enough to
think
say,
we
"Shut
were
up, old
sort
man."
of. I think we were kind of led to believe that things were going in a rather dangerous direction with Ironwood from a time, because we saw things like him locking down, and I think there was a sense in Volume 6 even that what's going to happen when we actually get to Ironwood. We didn't even know if Crow's letter had made it through, and the Atlas guards at Argus did not inspire a lot of confidence in the heroes, at least.
how that letter? How did Crow expect it to make it to Atlas before him? Is the Mistral postal service just that good?
I mean,
Wait, what was the question
Raven
again?
does live in Mistral.
Like,
no,
I-
the idea was, do you think that Crow's letter was supposed to make it to Ironwood? I don't know.
I think it was. I think did he ever send it or something?
he did send it, but did he expect it to make it there? Like before he did? I don't know how good the postal system would be trying to get into a kingdom that's closed all its borders compared to just getting there yourself.
I mean, it was
Letter.
only if I recall correctly, it was only the CCT towers that got shut down, not the postal service or something, right?
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah,
but
I mean,
the post is slow, and that's a lot of distance.
and also Crow was going that way anyway. Why do you send a letter?
Maybe he assumed the mailman would go faster than the train. Maybe they have like planes or something.
I mean,
Maybe
shit.
Mistral just they Harry Potter and train their owls.
But I think we're getting a little off topic for the moment. I think now that we've talked a little bit about Volume 6 and a little bit of the lead out, let's talk about Ironwood showing up in Volume 7.
Uh,
When you
Beard.
heard Ironwood's initial plan and his initial approach to fighting Salem or trying to change how the war against the Grim was being fought, what do you think of it as a whole, both from where he was planning and from what the main characters know, comparatively?
I mean, I thought it was highly ambitious of him to go, yeah, we're gonna launch this thing. It's so high up. I was like, I mean, I don't know the costs and how you would make an infrastructure to do that. Like, what would you do after that? What if it needs repairing? Do you lower it or?
I think the idea was to just make it so high that it was. Didn't he say it was like supposed to be like in the upper atmosphere?
It was supposed to be high enough that even the flying Grim couldn't get to it, which implies that the atmosphere would be so weak, wings wouldn't work, which is how most flying Grim, do the flappy. The only problem with that, though, is that's really fucking high.
How
Mm.
much gravity dust would you be investing to lift something
Well,
the size of Amity Arena?
Well, considering how dust is pretty much useless out of the atmosphere, it doesn't matter how much dust you have. That thing is gonna freaking drop the second it's out of the atmosphere. Oh, and what was I supposed to say? I thought Ironwood's I thought his operating methods in the stark contrast to Ozpin's is, I guess it was kind of good, kind of bad. I don't have much to say for that, honestly.
Um, so, what are your thoughts on Ironwood's plan in general?
I mean,
Talk
Uh,
about.
uh,
a geosynchronous kind of thing like that, or sorry, I'm forgetting the word I was going to use, but it's basically where a satellite orbits fast enough that it stays over the same position. Like, that's a thing that we do in real life with communication satellites. And so it's possible, and it didn't sound terribly stupid because, hey, if the Grim can't wreck it, there's nothing Salem can do about it, yeah? And I was a little annoyed at Team Ruby, especially for just hiding the, oh yeah, small fact we forgot to mention, he's immortal. Or she's immortal.
Can't defeat Salem through strength of arm.
There
But
is no beating Salem, Raven.
uh,
was
I
Raven
love
right
that
all
quote.
along, and did Ruby make a mistake not telling Ironwood? Let's dive in then a little bit to the question of trust and paranoia.
Trust love,
For
dude.
I don't. Oh gosh.
the
I
single.
hate
Oh,
allergies.
I got it. The single thing that's common across every living creature in this planet is fear.
Oh, don't, Jared. We're not going to do the full Osmond monologue until we start talking about the fact that he launched a kid off a cliff.
I mean, this is a world where you got kids getting battle scars on a daily basis fighting creatures of pure hate. So so stuff like Ozpin throwing kids off of cliffs and Oscar getting shot, which is I know Helena's favorite scene, doesn't really phase me as much as it should.
If only Helena was yet to pose a counter argument.
Speaking of which, we have an extra guest among us. We
Ladies and
have
gentlemen,
Helena.
ladies and gentlemen,
Hello.
yes.
Also, don't listen to these idiots. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought I
will
made
reaffirm-
very good
I will
articulate
reaffirm
points.
that Ironwood was simply giving Oscar a taste of Ozpin's own medicine. He was just following what Ozpin always instructed him to do with annoying kids.
Launch kids off
Let's
cliffs.
be real here. Ironwood was just tired of listening to Oscar's philosophical bullshit, as everyone does.
To be entirely fair, yeah.
It
Oh,
it
gosh.
also didn't help either during that scene that Oscar really started to pick up Ozpin's mannerisms. Like, just look at the way he holds the cane when he gets down there.
And the fact that he probably lost the relic. I think Ironwood probably deduced that. But anyway, going back to an actual question that I'm going to pose to you guys. Do you think that this is going to be a question I know is going to have a lot of multifaceted answers. Do you think that Team Ruby won? Do you think that Team Ruby waited too long to trust Ironwood with with their information, and or do you believe that sharing that information earlier would have made a significant difference in how the last two episodes played out?
I mean, the idea is Ironwood is controlled by fear. So if they told him quicker, it would depend on how afraid he is in that moment and how he would let that fear then control his actions from there on out. It would depend a lot. By the looks of things, his reaction to Oscar explaining it in later scenes where Atlas was under attack, it might have not been the worst, actually.
Well, I mean, in that case, he didn't really have a choice on how to react to it because Atlas and Mantle were in such immediate danger. I mean, you can't really process the fact that, oh, hey, frick, this woman is immortal and the plan that you had isn't going to work when your citizens are in danger. It's the moment that Oscar told him, I think it worked for the purposes of the volume, and I mean, we saw how he reacted. He managed to pull it together quite admirably, in my opinion. Like in the immediate aftermath, certainly a lot better than the kids did. But damn it, where's Sierra? I need my other Ozpin stand with me.
One day we will have that podcast with 50 people in it. Mark my words.
We've already got 6 people in the call.
Oof. But yeah, I mean, the point that Oscar told him, I think it worked out as well as it would have in that situation, but it was a perfect storm of everything going wrong that kind of led up to the reaction we got in chapter 11. I don't know that if the kids had told him earlier in the volume, it would have gone down any better. I think he would have had more time to process it. But at the same time, it's a difficult question.
I mean, Ironwood just kept on getting things thrown at him throughout the volume. You know, you have Tyrion and the attack on the rally. Then Jox gets appointed to a position of power, which is never good. And
fucking Jacques.
Yes.
And things just keep on getting worse and worse. And we see him flirt with the idea of martial law and stuff like that. And the people, you know, Nora specifically in one scene is like, no, do not, please.
Who's Nora?
I had a friend named Martial Law.
I mean, we can kind of see how his military perspective, because he is very much a military man, limits him in this, because when you've got that military structure providing it, cracking down like that, yeah, that can prevent fear spreading, but you have civilians here who, all of a sudden, extra police, all kinds of guns everywhere, everyone gets terrified.
Shoot, what do I have to say about this? I guess they could have trusted him earlier, but it's just that it's just that, I don't know, he kind of seemed a bit untrustful at first. And shoot.
I do. Sorry, were you still talking, Jared?
I'm just kind of gathering my thoughts, and I'm just doing a rewatch of Volume 7 right now. Damn. But yeah, I guess.
Fun and interesting volume, and Ironwood has definitely been one of the big parts of how fun and interesting the volume has been.
He has.
Thoughts.
Ironwood has.
Yeah.
Ironwood just has a lot of "I'm done with this bullshit" faces. Let's be real here.
And James deep sigh Ironwood.
Another thing we should consider is that the lost impression that Ruby, Yang, and Blake have of Ironwood was his speech to Yang in Volume 3, I believe.
Oh yeah,
Ruby,
the one
they
where
lost.
Well, I mean, for
more
Ruby, I thought the last time that she
I mean,
saw him was
getting
when
on the
he
ship.
went to go
Yeah, getting on the
reclaim
ship.
his ship. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
oh,
then there
But-
was.
but yeah,
And then
And
White
then
sees him
Weiss
throughout
saw
Volume 4.
Ironwood in Volume 4 a few times, didn't he? Didn't she?
yeah. She
Yeah.
saw him in Jock's
He
study
said,
and at the dining
"Dead
hall.
body."
Jesus Christ. Volume 3 Ironwood was a total badass. Let's be real.
He didn't
The way
have
how
beard.
he just takes down that Beowulf at Amity Arena, and it's so wonderfully done. And also the way how he just takes down some bots in Vale. That's just glorious.
Carden
also-
was shocked. Carden was so
but
shocked. Like, bitch, I lived. And then he just wrecked robots.
Yes.
Probably talk all day about how Ironwood has received, in my opinion, some of the coolest fight choreography in the show, because
Dude.
the Watts versus Ironwood fight is probably my favorite fight of
Oh
the
my
yeah.
god.
entire
Don't
was
get me
set.
started
so
on that.
good. It
Yes.
was so well done.
Yeah.
And the
music and
music.
everything.
Ah.
Take my hand.
Going back to the question, I completely understand why Team Ruby didn't tell him. Like it's obvious from like the first moment we get into Mantle as a setting that we're supposed to question what in the world has happened between the time Weiss has left and the start of Volume 7. Like, what happened? What's James's mindset? Like, what the heck is going on? Because it does pull parallels to sort of visual representations of authoritarianism and sort of like, if you've ever read George Orwell's 1964 or 1984, I think it was 84.
Yeah,
Then it I mean, the first thing that screamed to me was, "Oh God, are we living in Big Brother?" But at the same time, after episode 2, and they had a chance to talk to him, and after the next few episodes, where they were expressing doubts about not telling him about Salem right away, especially like the conversation between Yang and Blake, it kind of it got to a point where it was still justified not telling him, but at the same time, there was a line Oscar had when he told him, I figured you should know before you make any sacrifices. And the thing that stood out to me about that line was that he had already. Like, that was the whole thing throughout the volume. It's like, okay, if you had told him that it wasn't going to work from the get-go, none of this really would have been necessary. Like, they could have found another way to either finish Amity or come up with a completely different plan that didn't put a strain on Mantle's resources. You know, things might have changed. So, I mean, it's a very, very difficult question because it gets into those really weird sort of hypotheticals, but I can understand why, but I really don't think that they should have kept it a secret as long as they did.
Yeah, my own personal thoughts are probably around that area, because I think that it was building to narratively, and what the characters were seeing, it did build, in my opinion, to a question of what is Ironwood really up to, or has he already, gone off the deep end and become the first empire of Mantle?
I mean,
But
you
I had to get that joke in there, guys. Don't kill me for it.
Mm.
But the theme of whether or not we trust others and whether or not we trust ourselves with truth and with choice to do the right thing, it did make me very sad to see that it felt like trusting others didn't result in a breakthrough with Ironwood. I think it did with other characters, but it did make me sad to see that. speaking of relationships and trust, one of Ironwood's most important relationships has always been his friendship and tempestuous relationship with Ozpin. Going over the entire arc from Volume 2 to Volume 7, how do you think that friendship and the destruction of that friendship has been portrayed throughout the show? Fel, do you want to start us off?
Eep.
Oh god, I've been put on the spot.
Yeah.
Da,
Yeah,
da, da,
no, I'm gonna
da.
have to think of something to say.
I can go first if you'd rather.
Of course you
Alright.
can.
You're in the hot seat now.
Are you kidding? I think about these things day and night. What do you mean?
I'd love to
Um,
look into your dreams.
That's not at all weird.
I was gonna say that was a little weird, Dylan.
Why am I surrounded
Aw.
by such weirdos? Why can't I just have normal prequel me?
Would you rather I start quoting the prequels there, Senate?
You know what? Do what you have to do as long as you answer the question.
Okay, so it's honestly, it is one of the most, it's not a relationship that's really heavily focused on, but it is definitely one of the more interesting in the show, because from the first moment, even though like volume 2, James gets introduced by like telling Ozpin like drop the formalities, like I'm here as a friend. You get the sense that they are very much at odds with how they deal with things, and you see that throughout volumes 2 and 3. I mean, everything that James does is very much like, as was said before, like a military perspective on things. And I think it's difficult for the two of them to reconcile that when it comes to the really important things, especially in volume 3. But I honestly, it's a lot. But like there are moments you can pick out where you can see that the trust is kind of falling through the cracks, like the end of volume 2 when James takes over security for the Vital Festival, or the conversation he has with Glinda before that, about him talking about trust but not showing it.
They totally
Uh,
bangs.
Wait, Ozpin and Ironwood totally banged?
What? No.
Oh,
You know what
that's-
I mean.
That's
I
the
mean,
OTP right there.
Hey, I ship.
Let's
Goodwood
let
for
Helen-
life. We also need a better ship name for that.
What
We-
is it?
We call it Iron Souls.
Huh.
Ooh, that's not bad. Anyways, and I think volume 4, I want to say it's chapter 10, Taking Control. There's the scene there when James is talking to Jacques about what Winter has been hearing in Mistral, and he has this whole moment where he loses his temper, and he says, "If Oz had just listened to me from the start." And I mean, going into volume 7, that scene kind of stuck with me, and I was really surprised to see like how genuinely excited James got when Crow and Oscar said that Oscar was like had Ozpin in his head, because I really wasn't expecting that kind of reaction after the last time we saw him in volume 4. But I mean, at the same time, kind of makes sense. But over the course of the volume, I really got the sense that the more Oscar kind of wasn't enough like Ozpin, the worse things kind of got between them, if that makes any sense. Trying his best to offer advice whenever he could, but either it was almost exactly what James was expecting Oz would say, or it just wasn't enough.
Oh man! And then he got shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of
Shot.
so. Ironwood learns Ozpin can come back from the dead, but he he's not really old enough to have seen it happen before, so he doesn't really know what to expect, and so he's kind of expecting almost, at least this is my interpretation, that Oz is just going to be back, but in a new body, or he's just going to straight up be back. Because honestly, there's stranger stuff going on. And then he sees this like 14-year-old farm boy who's this skinny wisp of a thing, and the only real resemblance to Ozpin is some of the syllables in his name and the cane. And it's
And the
just
clothes.
this kind of this break, right, between what he expected and the reality that kind of really starts to kick some of the shit downhill.
Oh, shoot. What was the question again? I dozed off.
The relationship between Ozpin and Ironwood.
All right. Here's what I gotta say about it. Yeah, so like volume 2, right? You kind of see that strain between him and Ironwood, and he's like, and Ironwood and Ozpin is like mildly annoyed that Ironwood had to bring his whole army to Vale. And then later on in volume 3, you hear him over the phone and he's like, James, you brought your army here. Now do what you were supposed to do with them. Protect the city or something. And I guess Ironwood and Oz's relationship was all right, I guess. I could tell it was a bit strained, but And then during volume 7, I guess you could tell that like Ironwood was kind of distraught that Oscar was Ozpin, but Ozpin had locked himself in Oscar's mind. But he still, for the time being, tried to see him as Oscar, his own person, until like the final chapter where he just you see that Oscar develops Ozpin's mannerisms and everything, and even starts to kind of talk like him, and that's where James really loses it, because it tells you that he thinks that Ozpin is still Oscar, but that's not the case. I am so fucking tired. Damn. But
Understandable.
yeah.
Well, anyway, just a quick thing I wanted to point. I always like to imagine what it would be like if some of the roles were reversed, such as Ironwood would never bring in Ruby as a 15-year-old child into Atlas Academy. I don't believe.
He brought a 3-year-old robot, but that's beside the
Yeah. He would, as soon as he saw how poor John was, he probably would have investigated and kicked him out.
Yeah.
And it's like that sort of contrast between him and Ozpin. You know, Ozpin is a bit of an eccentric. Like, let's throw kids off cliffs. You know, like what does Ironwood do? You think about that?
I mean, what was the line from volume 2 that he told Team Ruby? Instead of waiting for you all to break the rules, let's just bend them a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Ozpin was a cool
picture
headmaster.
Ironwood doing that, bro.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, we also haven't actually really seen that much of Atlas Academy and the students' lives there and the admissions process. And it could well have been that Ironwood saw that Jean had the balls to fake a transcript to get into an academy, even if he knew he wasn't necessarily good enough. In fact, he knew that, so he forged transcripts anyways, and thought, all right, that kind of dedication is something I can use.
What
Data
if
analyst just like get smart?
Ironwood makes John commit tax fraud?
He cooks
Balance
for
the
Jacques,
Atlas
so
Army
Ironwood
budget.
can get Jacques out of the way.
Yes.
But I also do see some parallels there where they both have these small groups of younger people that they place around themselves with. Ozpin, you had Team Stark. With Ironwood, you have the Aesops. And you think about the interactions with them. And it's interesting to see what information they'll tell, the soldiers, basically. and how they treat each other and what the relationship between them is why I want to know more about a Team Stark Ozpin relationship more than just Crow.
I think Stark's relationship was let's just say very lustful.
Oh my
Entire
God.
team.
Yes.
Personally,
entire
Well, I
I
mean,
have this
that's-
theory now
Mm.
where I think that what if maybe, just maybe, and this is entirely crack, crack idea, but maybe Ironwood specifically tried to make sure that Aesop's wasn't like family or like family friends, the way Stark kind of was, because he sort of saw the breakdown of that with Stark. Like, the only two members of Stark that seem to have a close relation or any sort of friendship now is Crow and Ty. Meanwhile, another member is dead and the other member just like effed off. So he
She
was.
left to get cigarettes and she hasn't come back.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we don't know if Summer is dead. I mean, she's probably dead.
I
Salem,
mean,
I'd say she's
if-
probably dead.
let's be
if
real
she's
here.
not-
Salem just curb stomped her with magic. That's all
Yo
we know.
mama.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking minimum chance of death 95%. And
Yeah.
that's being generous. She's
That's my
almost certainly
favorite.
dead.
That's my favorite chance of death.
certainty
That's
of
when all the
death,
cool shit happens.
small chance of success. What are we waiting
What are we
for?
waiting for?
But it is very interesting to see the contrast between two like adult authority figures who have had a long-standing friendship and relationship, to see it break down under strains of fear and different ideologies, which is why we should now begin to talk about gravity.
Oh boy.
That
Keep
fun
dreaming
thing that
about a
throws
better
us all at the
world.
ground.
Yep, you keep pushing for some
boy.
clarity. Always
Oh,
hoping
no.
that a lightning bolt is gonna save you from
Gonna
this
save you from gravity.
gravity.
Wait,
If only we had Sir
I
Isaac
do
here.
have OBS up. I can just mute you all for the podcast.
it's okay. Worst come to worst, Wolf kicks me and never lets me be a host again
How
because
dare
I'm
you.
supposed to wrangle you all together.
Right.
But what did you feel? What did you think of Ironwood's descent into paranoia and gravity, and how did that arc and into the finale, like, affect you and how you thought of things? You can talk about anything from Ironwood from those two last episodes. Go
Okay.
nuts.
Okay. You know what I think of gravity? I think that Ironwood now has PTSD whenever he plays chess.
Oh no, I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's awful and I love it.
Yes. Just imagine old Ironwood just playing games with Crow, and all of a sudden he moves a chess piece, and then he just gets Vietnam flashbacks. Through the war, a
If
chess
Ironwood
piece
plays
really
as
goes-
anyone but Black, he gets PTSD every other turn.
It ain't me.
Okay,
It ain't
speaking.
me.
All right.
Poor fucking man.
I
Okay.
ain't no maiden son.
All right. Speaking seriously though, I think I like the episode Gravity because first of all we get that kick-ass fight scene with Ironwood and versus Watts, and also we see him like finally go off the deep end because he sees that black chess piece and he recognizes that from the fall of Beacon, and yeah, you see him start to really lose it and starts getting paranoid and panicking and everything. What if it's all the planet or blah 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 mantle or whatever? And one of the lines that I realized a few days ago was like, there was that one line that said, "You all lied to me," when like, I mean, the guy literally lied to a whole town about a project that was finished just to bring in a nerd so he could beat the shit out of him.
Oh, I mean, that's a tricky argument, Jared.
So like, no one's really in the right here or wrong, but
I
whatever.
mean, I think that was the point of the entire episode.
Yep. There's no one in the right or wrong, just in the wrong. That was me trying to say
Junior
right
was
and
in
wrong.
the wrong for just ditching Oscar. I mean, That's what I think.
Junior. You mean the guy from the
Nah,
Yang
Team
trailer?
Junior.
Oh.
Ren,
Serious.
Sean, and what's her name?
Nora.
Who?
Oof.
Nora!
You senile old man. The crazy, orange-haired, grenade-toting lunatic.
You mean Demo Man from TF2?
Yes.
All right, Dylan, let's hear from you a little bit.
Oh, okay. Blink, blink. Well, the episode's really interesting because we do see Ironwood sacrifice his final human part, what we assume, letting the robot with no heart take over. And it's also him sacrificing more for this cause once again. And he does that, and he's like, all right, he's feeling all good about himself. Just caught one of the main enemy's generals, and he goes back to his office, and he just sees chess piece.
Mm. Oh man.
There were 2 episodes between There was an episode between Gravity and the finale, right?
Yeah.
That was
Well-
the Crow and Clover.
Don't
Stabbity,
remind
stabbity.
us.
I think.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was a trip.
Nah.
I personally, when I saw that episode, I felt that it had been built up to this, but I also hoped that it was building up to the other way the pendulum could have shifted, where I believe that there was a chance that Ironwood would not break down from fear to basically decide to go, F you, save mine, when it came to a lot of people, because the moments when, Oscar revealed to Ironwood that Salem was immortal made me think, this could, they could still pull together. But then this episode and just seeing the conflict internally, there's an image, Jared, I think you showed, where Ironwood is just looking out the window or into not a mirror, but like his reflection is looking back at him through the window.
Oh yeah, I did take that screenshot.
And
I call it the Jimmy constellation.
oh my goodness. I mean, to me, I just have to wonder what was all the things that were going through his head, all the internal conflict, and then multiply that with like physical pain and probably a lot of painkillers.
Mm.
That it's just, I can see where he decided that he had to save. He decided that only he knew how to save who he could, how to
That-
save Atlas,
Well,
that city,
That skin.
To be
I'm telling you
fair,
all right now. I'm telling you all right now. That skin is not growing back.
no.
So
that's what skin grafts are for.
also,
Mm.
I was going to make a long speech about the Anakin and Darth Vader parallel fact, but I'll
Oh no.
Oh no. Save that for another podcast. um what to say that hasn't been said already?
I mean, I could ask you a question, Helena.
Oh no. I'm gonna regret.
What do you-
Sure.
What do you think about the relationship that kinda isn't there between Ironwood and Robin, and they contrasting personalities and their ideologies?
Okay, first of
Robin
all,
is the
That's
worst.
Robin's a dumbass.
bad
And,
question to ask because I do not like Robin as a character at all.
I don't like her
Yeah,
either.
but take out the
kinda-
character and more the
kinda-
political
you-
sense.
for Robin, obviously she's based off of Robin Hill. I'm Robin Hood.
Robin
I
Hood.
mean, just look at her and her name. But speaking seriously, I think I like how Robin's basic whole thing is like she doesn't do she knows the dangers of obedience and loyalty, and it's like she doesn't. And I guess that's kind of why she's a rebel, because she doesn't want to fall in line or whatever to stuff. But it kind of still gets her in trouble and everything.
Yeah.
And it also caused her the breakup of Team Rock and Clover's death. Just saying.
Oh god, the idiot ball got passed around so much in chapter 12.
No.
Much.
No. Someone was no. It was idiot juice they drank.
Oh, okay. But anyways, getting back to those last 3 episodes, yes, pure idiot juice.
They must have spiked the water in Atlas.
Turn the frickin' frogs gay.
I mean,
I kind of wanted to say it, but didn't want to go that far.
Didn't Watts control the?
You're welcome.
He probably controlled the water supply too.
I mean, ice is water, and Atlas Mantle has ice everywhere. So.
Well, I mean, okay, so
no wonder we were getting big gay strong feels between Clover and Crow.
Why are we like this? We need to get back to the topic.
Trying to get back to the topic at hand, I wanted to talk about what I thought about gravity. But now I'm just like, okay, maybe we should just go off on a completely different tangent.
Maybe we should just talk about child abuse of Oscar Pine.
No!
Sing the song. Chief, sing the song. I heard you sing the song.
No.
Hurting Oscar Pine. Whoa. Hurting
Oscar Pine.
All right, I'll record that for you guys later one day.
This is a disaster. We have officially
next
gone
spring.
off the
Off
rails.
the rails. We're on a completely different set of rails now.
We are the Argus Limited in episode 1 right now.
Yes.
I think I do have to bring this.
The
back
tracks ahead of
together
us are
with my
destroyed.
final thoughts. This is a conflicted character that's obviously crossed a lot. I think after the finale, he's crossed several lines between himself and his friends and desire to protect Atlas, that it's going to be a very conflicted, very interesting thing to see what he does in Volume 8. If he even survives very far into Volume 8, because Mommy Salami has.
Oh god!
God.
Don't even.
No.
Don't.
No.
Please don't let Ironwood die. Just let him have a vacation in Chaw and Vacuo or something like that.
Boy needs some therapy.
Helena, I already told you this. There is no therapy in Remnants.
It explains why all our mains are still so fucked up. God.
And why Cinder is totally crazy.
So what do you got as a final question? What do you think is the Volume 8 future for this character?
Let's see here. He's already he's planning to send Atlas high up into the sky. He shot Oscar, but I guess, what do I think of his future in Volume 8? I don't know. I guess him standing up to Salem or something like that, or whatever. Or like just him failing miserably and like Atlas turning into a giant wasteland.
I mean, I think
Mm.
he's going to kind of become more of an antagonist. He's not going to side with Salem. Probably not, at least. But I don't think he's going to remain like a good guy, with the main cast and fully on the good guys, because he's obviously going to come into direct conflict with the main characters given the ending.
Pew pew.
Yeah. Penny's also the Winter Maiden, right? So there's nothing he can do without that power.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised what you can accomplish
I
with a roll of duct
expect
tape.
what we'll see of Ironwood in Volume 8 will be just his remaining robot arm left, and he will be gone.
That's the arm.
How can we lose the great voice acting talent of last name is Rose?
Jason
right?
Rose.
Jason
Yeah.
Rose.
Oh my god. He
I'm-
carried
That
this
would be-
entire fucking
that would
volume.
be-
I'm going to say this right now. When I first heard him as Ironwood, I thought, why does this 40 to 50-year-old man have the voice of a teenage jock?
No.
And it's like, I'm serious. That's what I first thought. But now I guess it kind of grew on me and it's Fane for his character. So, but still.
Okay, quick question of the day from Dylan here. Is just off topic. Is there any like voice actor in the show who you think you do not match your character at all?
JJ Castillo as Mercury. I will say this though. During Volume 2, he was fitting for him because like, Mercury's a snarky, smug-ass character, so at that time, so it's Fane for him. But then like when Volume 3 came around and we heard Benton, I mean Spider-Man, I mean
Yuri Lowenthal.
freaking Yuri Lowenthal. I thought that he was the better fitting voice for Mercury because he just sounds so serious during those flashbacks where we see Mercury and Marcus's dead carcass. So, oh, look, that rhymes, Marcus Carcass. And it's I just prefer Yuri Lowenthal at this point because he's way fitting for a character than JJ Castillo was. But I still prefer both of them either way. So because like,
Wait,
can you just
Ironwood's legs still human?
One of them is, one of them isn't.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, he's got a lot of robot. He's more machine now than man.
He is
Yeah.
literally.
I think he's literally half.
He's literally
was.
just. He is. He is literally Two-Face, but instead of different personalities, he has different sides. He has.
So wait, he's Cable from X-Men? No, okay.
No, he's Two-Face. But instead of like one side being purple and one side being regular, one side's human. At least in his chest area, that is.
Oh my god.
I mean,
Volume 8. I love you guys. We're so off topic.
I mean, I was gonna try to bring it back because I didn't get to say what I even thought of chapter 11.
Say what you need to say,
You guys
Helena.
wanted me to come in and you won't even let me talk.
It's
No.
all Dylan's fault. He asks like 2 off-topic questions, and I need to kick him from every podcast now.
Yeah, Dylan.
Oh.
It's okay, Dylan. I still love you.
I don't.
Anyways, okay. So condensing down my final thoughts, and where I think the character is going for volume 8. Oh my god, volume 8, chapter 8 is going to be the 100th episode of Ruby. Did you guys know that?
Yeah. They better do something.
I did not.
Spectacular. They better do something spectacular for that. Make it a 22-minute episode or something like that. Make it long.
Also, bold of you to assume there will be 8 parts to Volume 8.
Well, I mean,
What,
Volume 8.
chapters? They said it was going to be longer.
Yeah.
What if Salem just wins in Volume 8, Chapter 1? The show's over.
Just black screen
I think.
for the entire rest of the volume. But
Alright, let's stop interrupting Helena real quick.
Sorry.
I will try to keep this as brief as I possibly can. But as most people in this server now know, James Ironwood is definitely my favorite character. And I mean, from the point in chapter 11 onward, it was honestly I honestly felt absolutely terrible for him, because you think about he and the main characters and Ozpin have very different ways of doing things, but their end goal is still the same, and that's to protect the people of Remnant. And the way that James thinks is best to do that is just to get rid of Salem. And I mean, he ain't wrong, but the way he goes about it is a little bit problematic, to say the least. But I mean, is that in his mind, it seems to me that he's banking everything on this because it has to be worth it in the end. Like, all the strain on Mantle, everybody turning on him and hating him, his public image being completely ruined in that regard, it all has to be worth it in the end. And I think that part of what made 11 and later chapter 13 hit so hard for me is the fact that he realizes it won't be. That like everything that he was trying to do, all of the pressure that he put on his people in Mantle, all the different gambles that he made, it's just, there's going to be no payoff. And now Salem's on his doorstep and they have nothing. to be able to like counter her, which is just the most depressing shit.
Yeah.
Honest to God. So I mean, that moment in chapter 11 where he walks back into his office and he sees the chess piece. One, there is half a moment there where he smiles, and ow, my heart.
I mean, I would. Never mind.
Yeah.
Continue.
And two, the, and part of this is definitely Kruby for nailing all the facial expressions this volume. Whoop whoop. But it's that look of utter oh fuck that we get.
Well, shit.
Everything just falls apart from there. I mean, the thing about fear, and Jared plug Ozmon's speech, but the thing about fear is that it makes you doubt things that you shouldn't. It absolutely twists your mind and makes you think things that like were never a possibility before because you're just so scared of everything all at once. And definitely seeing the chess piece and knowing earlier in the volume, it was in one of the earlier chapters, I think it was worst case scenario when he and Oscar are down in the vault. You get that that definitely this man has some PTSD from Beacon. But just seeing that, knowing that somebody's inside the academy already, and then getting Salem Skyping in saying, "Hey, bitch, guess who's coming to dinner?" It all compounds in the worst way possible. And like, yeah, his play is absolute garbage, but I also entirely pity him. So going forward into volume 8, I really, really hope, I pray that this man has some deal of remorse for what he did to Oscar. I mean, if anybody can still convince him that he's not on doing the right thing and on the right path, I think it is Ozpin, not Oscar. But like there was a line I think in volume 6 where Watts was like, if Ozpin's the only one with a chance to get through Ironwood. And if he does that and they call on Vacuo for aid, then we're fucked. So I mean, going into volume 8, I hope that that's the route that they go. I can see it getting worse, which I hate, but I mean, would be interesting to see like what sort of if he hits rock bottom and bounces, or, and stealing a joke from Fat Man Falling here, crashes through the fiery ceiling of hell like a rotationally challenged Kool-Aid Man. So I mean,
I think I have to offer my own thoughts before I lose my train of thought or get interrupted. I personally think that through Volume 8, we are the Ironwood at his lowest point, and we're going to see whether he's going to come back or it's going to be one last sort of moment of death or glory sort of thing. Personally, my hope for the character is to see some sort of like remorse or redemption for the character, because, and specifically, I hope that he does live through the series and live, because so often redemption and sacrifice are tied together with the idea that in order to be redeemed, the character has to die. And I think that personally, it would be far more interesting to see what would happen if the character has to live again more with the consequences of all that's happened and all the bridges they've burned and all of the struggles that they've had to go through. I mean, I don't know what's going on in the writing room volume 8. I think that they've done a very good job in getting us all invested in the personal struggles of these characters, not just General Ironwood, but the people around him, Team Ruby, just like the interpersonal relationships. And I really hope to see something that really makes us think what will happen next, because there were so many times where people thought, oh, Ironwood's going to be totally bad, or oh, maybe Ironwood's totally now dedicated to fighting, sticking with the fight. But there's just so many twists and turns. I didn't expect things to go as fast as they did in chapter 11, but it just the shoe fell. So did Oscar.
I am.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh shit.
something that I think will be a little telling as Volume 8 comes out is how Ruby and Penny approach dealing with Ironwood. Because they're kind of the characters I feel that they're both tend to be the most friendly, and if they're not really willing to let someone back in, then you can kind of see, all right, maybe this isn't going to go well, because these are the people that are the most outreaching, the ones that are most likely to lend you a hand. I mean, Ruby was like really fine with Blake being a terrorist.
Well, I mean, Ruby reached out to Raven at the Battle of Haven, so
Yeah.
But then she sort of I think that she sort of realized sometimes you got to take a stand and then just F off Cordovan,
I mean,
So-
she did circumcise Tyrion, so
Watching
Why do
watching
we-
Ruby getting yeeted across the room by that fireball is still hilarious.
it's
it is
just,
kind of.
it's just how it's animated that really gets to me.
Yeet.
I really
Anyways,
liked it.
Fel, finish your thoughts.
Oh, wait, what were my thoughts? I kind of lost them.
Ruby and Penny are the most friendly. Ruby's one of the most outreaching characters.
Yeah, and I think like watching how they react to Ironwood's betrayal before, if this happens where we pick up like right after the ending of Volume 7, like a couple minutes, and how they process it, or seeing how they deal with reaching out to him if it starts back a little later, or just as we see this throughout the season progresses, that can kind of help us predict some of where I think Ironwood's going to be going in this show. If they can find it in themselves to be like, you know what? At least he was fucking trying, or something like that. Then I think we can kind of see, all right, he's probably going to be redeemed and might not necessarily need to die.
I am highly anticipating a scene between Ironwood and Crow, just because what Crow said during Clover's last moments, James will take the fall. It's I'm quite excited to see what their next conversation will be like.
You were the chosen one.
Oh, Art would not be able to handle that.
After
I-
the hug. Oh my
Yeah.
Oh,
Ugh.
Oh god. Yeah, I just realized that now. The next time Crow and I would see face to face, it is not going to be pretty.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
imagine like I'm telling you this, like here's what I think is gonna happen. Crow sees Ironwood, Ironwood sees Crow, and Crow just immediately starts throwing hands at him. And it's like that scene from Volume 3 where like the two see each other and you think Crow's gonna like slay Ironwood or anything, but he's not. He's like getting a grim that's
Oh,
behind
what a-
Ironwood.
Fucking callback that would be.
And you and it's it would be a callback to that, but like this time you actually see Crow like slay Ironwood.
I don't know,
Yeah.
personally, I'm looking forward to Crow and Robin versus.
say
That's
again,
just
Chief.
me.
I can barely hear you on that one.
Cut out again, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted Ironwood to shoot Crow and Robin at some point.
You just like seeing members of the cast get shot, don't you?
Oh,
General
God.
Ironwood, there's too many of them. What are we going to do?
Do not
Yeah.
execute Remnant's version of Order 66. Just don't.
They already did it in Volume 3, where they're fine, or they're not fine.
I mean,
True.
It's
looking back
still-
on it now, Volume 3 is like, okay, we lost Pyrrha, I guess.
Yeah, they really had to raise the stakes for that because that's when the main story starts. So
We lost who?
Well, Pyrrha.
You know, she's got
Um,
red hair like me.
she was
But like,
she was the
yeah.
John simp.
Oh.
okay, whoa. I will just offer this my last thought on all of this, and after that, I think maybe we should wrap up because we're
I have-
getting seriously
I have
off
a
topic.
few
So,
more words after this too.
My personal final thought on this is that as much as I would love to have James survive the series and have him be redeemed in some capacity, and this is quoting a Tumblr user. I can't remember what their Tumblr handle is, but it was very, very true. It was saying that in the same vein, they hoped that James would be redeemed, but at the same time, his story has always felt like the story of someone who could have been saved but wasn't.
That's interesting.
And I will leave it at that.
That is an excellent note to leave anything on.
But Dylan had another thing.
Did I?
Oh,
I don't
I
remember.
have a
Let
thing. Shoot, what was I supposed to say? Let's see here. Yeah, my thoughts. Oh yeah. What is your favorite Ironwood? What is your favorite look of Ironwood in the show? For me, it's his Volume 4 look. That is just the suit is very underrated and very nice.
The arms.
I gotta take back control of this before I let Jared talk us to oblivion. All right.
Wait,
Oh my goodness.
did Dylan? Did you have something more to add?
No, I had nothing to add.
I think you
Okay.
heard Jared and thought it was Dylan. Because
Oh,
Jared did say he wanted to say something when you started speaking.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just that tired.
I've let this turn into a. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been a very exciting, spontaneous, interesting episode of the Cacophony. Thank you to my guest, Fel. Yeah, you can just say a little something as your outro.
Oh!
Yeah, this is, as I said last time, a cursed episode.
Oh yeah, it really is. Helena.
Onward to Volume 8 and all the pain.
What are you talking about? Everything will be fine. Jared.
Mercury is best boy. Bald. Clean shaven daddy is best daddy, and something simpery.
Jared is wrong. Beard Daddy is best daddy.
No,
I
he
agree with
isn't.
this.
Yeah, he is.
Oh my god. Dylan, you better give us something good to end on the note.
I still have something in my eye.
God.
Thank you, everyone. May the force be with you.
Boo.
Don't get sick.
Don't get sick. No, now you've
Good
dated
night.
me.